Alright guys, a little bit of a late start, so just got to get a few more things set up. That's what happens when you get tinkering with stuff. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Dave Bernard, and I get on here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, and I ride on. And the whole point of this is that a little backstory. In January of this year, I was supposed to have an umbilical hernia operation, and the surgeon, in so many words, said, "You're too fat, buddy. You gotta lose some weight." In order to have a successful surgery, successful recovery, and all of that good stuff, he said, you know, let's go ahead and get you down to a BMI of at least 35. So that's what we're doing here. Started off at 313 pounds. You'd like to see me down to 244 pounds. Now, normally on Wednesdays, I was doing what I called a weigh-in Wednesday.
Here we go.
And if you saw the title of today's video or live, it said data overload. And there's a lot of examples I can give you of that, but we'll stick on topic for now, which is what Weigh-In Wednesday was doing to me personally mentally. So I'm definitely on a lot of different medications because of cholesterol, blood sugar, all kinds of fun stuff that happens when we get older. And some of this for the last year has been, I don't want to say experimental, but experimental. You know, we're trying to figure out what works for me. And so there's always a chance that some of this medication is hindering my weight loss goal. And so as I was weighing in every Wednesday and not seeing the results that I expected, and those of you that followed me back in 2012 know that I had a pretty massive transformation back then. Matter of fact, kind of looks goofy when I put it up here, but so if you look down there, so that was my 2012 transformation. That was from February 1st until I think October 7th. Was the difference between those two pictures. And so, not to mention, I actually have a degree in this fun little world of health and wellness. And so, as I was getting frustrated, week to week, I just noticed that it was really affecting me mentally. And so a couple of weeks ago, I decided I wasn't going to weigh in at least until May. And then, we see where we're at. But for the last 3 weeks since I haven't been weighing in, Invincible. I can tell you that for me, the feeling has been kind of a relief. Like, I feel great. I feel better. I'm getting my rides in. And I'm not saying that there's any less importance on the weight loss goal, but I'm not weighing myself. And not weighing myself for me this time around definitely is feeling better. Now, I put an emphasis on this because I, in 2012, weighed myself twice a day. And that worked for me back then. What I could do was remember what I ate all day long, and so when I would weigh in, at least as I was learning what worked for me back then, that worked to be able to weigh in multiple times a day and just kind of gauge those results, if that makes sense. So this time around, that wasn't serving me. And so I had to, I made the decision to stop weighing myself because I realized that it was putting me in a position where I mentally just wanted to stop. Like, I was super frustrated with the results and just wanted to stop. And I knew that a lot of it had to do with some of this medication, but regardless of what your mind knows, you still feel like shit, you know, when you're not getting the results you want. So, just going over the last few weeks where the weigh-in, the pressure of the weigh-in was removed, I actually feel better. Now, that's only because I'm still continuing to eat very well, and I am still exercising often. Not just here when you see me on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but other times throughout the day or throughout the week. And so, we all know that stress actually is also an issue when it comes to weight loss, or if you don't know, it is. And so, that degree of disappointment for me personally was also, I think, causing some of the issues. Now, there's no question that I've changed, my body has changed over the last, you know, few months. Oh, there we go with the camera freezing up again. So there's no question my body's changed over the last few months. So it's not a matter of me not having results. The blood work that I had done a couple of weeks ago came back amazing, like really good results. Not where they need to be, but again, really good results. And so no complaints there, you know. It was just this, the one measurement, the one piece of data that was off was driving, you know, everything. And so I want to say fortunate because I worked in the automotive industry, and data was a huge part of that. And I was in management and engineering. And I kind of learned this lesson, so I recognized it pretty quick that be careful of what you measure. So in the case of myself, I wasn't measuring my overall health. I was just measuring one thing, which was the scale. And that wasn't serving me. And if I would have just listened to that, it almost derailed me to the point that I gave up. And I said, you know what? This isn't working. Just go back and eat some bonbons and sit at my desk for 10 hours a day. And I guess I can't lose weight, which obviously I know better. I know it's a chemical issue for me. That there's something going on. And we're continuing to fight through that. But the blood work alone shows that what I'm doing is working. So maybe the scale isn't measuring properly, but the blood work is. You know, example of that in my old world, in the automotive industry, was, holy crap, man, we are 10% incline. Holy crap. This stinks. Good thing my camera's not working. You guys don't have to watch this. Crazy faces going on. Holy cow. 11%. Jesus. If you look in the upper right hand corner, if you want to know what's going on, that's the grade incline. Now today we're riding in New York City, and so I don't do this route that often, so I tend to forget what I'm getting myself into. And that's alright. We'll level out here in a minute. Woo! So anyways, so I kind of learned this lesson back when I worked at General Motors, specifically in the manufacturing process. And in my early career, I was just a line supervisor. And so the upper echelon would kind of give you those goals of what you had to achieve. And many times they would go after one metric, and that was the production, that was the numbers, that was, you know, if you had a capacity to build 2,000 units in a day, then if you didn't meet 2,000 units, you basically were firing yourself. And there was that much pressure on hitting those numbers. Well, you know what would happen is everybody eventually would hit those numbers, right? Because that was the most important thing. That was the only important thing. But what suffered? What suffered when you hit 2,000 units every single night, and potentially the capacity actually wasn't there because something's changed? Well, what suffered was the quality. Quality suffered. And so by measuring production alone and not putting an emphasis on quality, yeah, you would get, you know, let's say the number again is 2,000, you would get 2,000 units out, right? And it'd all be junk. It would all be scrap, or it would all be, you know, whatever it is. And of course, then they'd get pissed at you for that. And but at the end of the day, when the reward was just to hit one metric, and not look at the big picture, you know, that's a critical error. And it's the same thing for you in life, not just with weight loss, but in life. You know, for some people, they measure success, let's say by having the big fancy car, the big fancy vehicle. And so imagine that their dream vehicle is a brand new Cadillac Escalade. And you know, that vehicle I think starts out at around $80,000 or more. I don't know. It's not my dream vehicle, so I don't know. Well, now let's say that you only make $50,000 to $75,000 a year gross. Well, if you're a normal human being and you have a mortgage and or high rent, then you're going to probably be a little cash strapped if you go and buy that $70,000 vehicle. And even if you lease it. And I'm in the automotive business still, and I see people, I help a lot of people with their financing, and I see, you know, people coming in and they're in this mindset of if they're approved, they'll buy it. I see people paying $1,100, $1,200 a month for a car payment. It's insane. But to them, they've met the goal. To them, success is that thing. So even though they're going bankrupt, possibly, which I see that a lot too, they're going bankrupt, they think that they've become successful. And then once the bankruptcy process starts, they're confused on what's going on. It's because they haven't looked at the big picture, and you've only started looking at one measurement. So if your measurement of success is a big fancy vehicle or that big fancy house, you know, and then you never have the opportunity to live. You know, you live paycheck to paycheck. You may make over $100,000 a year. You may make over $200,000 a year. Hell, it doesn't matter how much money you make, it's not enough because you haven't learned how to manage the big picture. And so you start having these big houses, mortgages, you have these fancy cars. You know, there's a lake here in Michigan that's about 30-45 minutes away from me that back in the 2000s, a lot of the mid-level managers of General Motors lived on this particular lake. And these were beautiful, fancy homes. It ended up becoming no secret that most of these homes had no furniture in them. They couldn't afford the furniture, but they had the home. They were measuring the wrong data to measure what success was, you know. And then you can see somebody else on the other end of the spectrum who, you know, might make less than $30,000 a year, but they live this life fulfilled where they live in a modest home. Maybe it's mobile, you know, you see a lot of these kids in their vans these days, but they're living life. And so I'm not saying that either one of them are absolutely correct, but you got to find a way to get somewhere in the middle of this. So to me, the big fancy house and the big fancy cars and having all of the stuff is not as important as having the experiences, being able to possibly travel around, being able to, you know, have a consideration of retirement someday, being able to actually have that nest egg built. You know, those things are what success should look like, but we live in a society where things seem to drive some of the data that you let rule your life, and then it becomes unobtainable, the life that you want to live. I do feel bad for a lot of these younger generations, only because they're stuck in this mindset right now that they have to, you know, show themselves being perfect, you know, on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and so their entire life is only showing the good and not the reality. I spent a little bit of time last year reviewing a lot of these van lifers, and it became very apparent that this is what they were doing. You never saw any of the bad of the van life. You never saw them breaking down on the side of the road. You never saw them struggling. You never saw them having to figure out how to use facilities, or how to bathe, or when to get food, or how to have enough electricity, or pay for the gas. You never saw that they were stuck in one spot for months and months and months while they figured out how to do something, or maybe they actually had to pick up a day job here and there. You never saw that. And so I think that those young people would better serve themselves and their community, in my opinion, if they would, no, we're still froze. So if they would just take the time to share the whole story, I think that would be more beneficial, not only for themselves, but for the community. But again, they're even stuck in this wrong data, you know, so you got to kind of read through what I'm saying, because I can't get out of my engineering brain to say it any other way. But they're measuring the wrong goals, in my opinion. And so when you start following the wrong goals, you know, you can really damage your potential and the life that you could live. There we go, we're normal again. So, you know, the big cars, the big fancy cars. Here was an interesting, getting into this. Hey Mom, my mom's online right now. So, to kind of give an example of this, as I was preparing for this topic over the last couple of weeks, this is embarrassing, but it's reality. So I have, I think on my Facebook friends list, I have over 2,000 people. And I used to have more. When I was kicking it with my weight loss journey back in 2012, 2013, I had too many friends following me. And a lot of them were with that company, and you know, I made a decision to move on because it wasn't good for my head to be associated with that company anymore. And so it had nothing to do with the company. It had nothing to do with anything to do with them. It had to do with me and how I felt. But I think it was a couple weeks ago, you know, I have around 2,000 friends, and as I was doing my research and looking at people that I was going to speak to here, I started looking at how many followers do they have. So kind of like a friends to follower ratio. So if they had 5,000 friends, how many people were actually following them? Makes sense, because the act of unfollowing somebody is deliberate. Oh, well thanks Mom. Let me drop the music down and you can hear my glorious voice. Yeah, this definitely was on my end. So I would look at this ratio, and you know, somebody had 5,000 friends, and you know, they'd only have 200 followers, or 500 followers, or 100 followers, or and the average was right around 10%. So if you had 5,000 friends, you probably only had about 500 followers, if that math is right. I don't know. Regardless of the percentage, that was the number. So on average, 500 people to 5,000 friends. What I didn't do is actually look at myself. And so my epiphany, I'm a little slow sometimes, guys. I'm like, well, I wonder how many people are following me. Reality set in, guys, right then and there. And there's a point to this. 98 followers. 98. 2,000 friends. 1,900 of them deliberately hit unfollow. The egotistical side of a person, of me, thinks that isn't cool. It's like, what the hell, right? The data-driven side of me, the analytical side of me, thought, there's a story here. There is something here. So I'm measuring having friends as my data point, right? What the data I measure. My success is 2,000 friends, let's say, or 5,000 friends, the max amount that Facebook allows. That would be, if that was a goal I had, I could surely figure out how to get 5,000 friends. But what the hell does that even mean if only 100 of them are actually interested? Now let's take it even further, and we all know that there's a lot of fake people out there. So out of that 98 followers, I bet you if I look deeper, half of those probably aren't even active and or don't exist at all anymore anyways. So they've changed the Facebook accounts or, whatever it is. So even of the 98, I could probably safely say that only 50 of them were real and possibly true fans or friends or followers. And a follower, in a lot of ways, you can consider a follower a fan of yours. Even though it's not a fan page or a professional page, it's still, they're a fan if they're following you. And so, why does that happen? Well, it's the content that you're giving them, right? So if you're only looking at one measurement, which is the number of friends that you have, as your success, and I'm just using this as kind of a silly example, but if you only make that your measurement, that's all that you care about is, I have 5,000 friends. Well, that's not very important. What's important is that you have 5,000 followers. And how do you get 5,000 followers? You have valuable content, right? So I'm speaking a little bit bigger than maybe what anybody that uses Facebook for their personal life would probably consider it. But the reason you don't have followers is because the information that you're giving is not valuable in whatever way it is, whether it's completely negative, where it's like, oh my God, I just don't want to watch this anymore. Like this guy, nope, I don't want to hear it. So if there's no value being given and it's just nonsense, then you're going to lose followers. You're going to have people just be done with you and purposely hit that unfollow button. Which is, I would tell you that's okay, because all you really want is the followers. It's not the friends. If you're sharing your life with people, or if you're sharing ideas, then it's really, when the laws of attraction marketing come in, and that's really what this whole game is, whether you're just using it for your own personal use or not, it's still attraction marketing. And attraction marketing is not attractive marketing. So it's not, you're pretty and they're gonna look. If you don't have value, then even the prettiest person isn't going to have too many followers. So there's a set of rules that, since we're on this topic of Facebook, that I've decided to go down this little rabbit hole. You know, people will follow you if they know, like, and trust you. Now, thinking through this, I'm going to use my friend Tony as an example. And I have a lot of friends named Tony, so chances are I'm not talking about you. This is only one specific Tony that I'm a friend with. Matter of fact, I may only be following him right now. He may have defriended me, I'm not sure, because we're not in the same company anymore, which is okay. But with Tony, I know him and I like him. I don't trust him. And so I don't have a lot of value in what he has to say. So, and that can happen to anybody. You know, you can be, and that's normal. I can know and like, I can still be friends with a lot of people, but it doesn't mean I necessarily trust what they're giving out, or it's not serving me personally. So if they're somebody that only puts out negative, you know, energy, then a lot of times, you know, that's a trust factor too. I know them, I'm friends with them, but I can't follow them because I don't trust that they're going to serve my mental state that I need to be in. That may not make sense to a lot of you, but just realize that sorry, the value that you provide is what keeps a friend a follower. I will tell you also the fastest way, and I am going to project a little bit of what I believe most of my unfollowers, why they have unfollowed me over time. And that is because of this other rule. And this falls into the trust factor, but it's called spamming. If you provide a solution to somebody or to a mass group of people and they didn't ask for it, you're spamming them. Now, you may not use that word, but that is the word. And so if you just provide a link to a solution and you haven't engaged and you haven't had a conversation and you haven't built the trust, so they haven't gotten to know you, right? They haven't gotten to trust you, then that's spam. If you just say, here's the answer to all your problems. Here's my gizmo, or my oil, or my whatever it is. When you just put the links to that potential product or service, or even worse, business opportunity, you're spamming people. You just are. And so you're not providing any value at that point anymore, because they don't trust you. And even if you had the greatest, wonderful, most compelling, true, open, transparent content, you would not be followed. Simple. Very, very simple. And so this goes back to measuring the wrong data, and again, remembering where I came from at General Motors in my young, early 20s when I was in management, and where we would measure the wrong things. Well, we wouldn't. The upper management would reward us based on the wrong data. You know, produce 2,000 units every night, night after night after night. Well, they didn't say produce quality. Quality wasn't the matter because, and let me tell you why they did that, by the way. You might think that they're complete morons, but because they're upper management, that's what they measured. So downtown Detroit every day would pull the reports, you know, the production reports from every facility around the world. And just imagine that that chart was a black and white chart, and anybody who didn't, the only change in color was a red number for anybody that didn't stay within the required number of production. So let's say the units were 2,000 units. Well, the big management down in Detroit, that's all they looked at. Okay, well, they didn't even look at it because nothing jumped out. But when you hit 1,500 units, and even if they were the most quality units on the planet, you got a phone call. What happened? What's going on? What are you doing about it? And oh, by the way, you're probably going to get fired. This is to the plant manager from downtown, right? This is downtown telling the plant manager, you didn't hit your numbers. So what does the plant manager do? He runs back down and says, hit the numbers. And even if you say, well, but plant manager, if we hit the numbers, we're not going to have a quality product. We're going to have a lot of scrap and a lot of other expenses. Doesn't matter. I'll deal with that later. Right now, hit the numbers. And so you can see that measuring data wrong, that going after the wrong goals and not having a bigger picture can be super detrimental to each individual, in my opinion. For me, bringing it back to my example of this weight loss journey, I was only measuring my weight loss. And so when I got on the scale and didn't see the results that I wanted, it almost made me give up. I almost threw in the towel and said, okay, I don't know what's going on, but getting on the bike and exposing myself to the world of what I'm doing just isn't working. And I wasn't measuring the overall benefits of what I'm doing. So yeah, I'm not seeing the weight loss, but my blood work has come back. I'll try to get a chart up one of these days. My blood work has come back amazing, incredible. The results are unbelievable. From 1 year ago to now, the results are unbelievable. Now, does my body look the same? No. Am I able to go into the gym and do what I really love to do, which is lift heavy weight? No. Are my arms over 20 inches and impress the world? No. But again, that's another example. If my goal was only to have these ginormous arms, again, I know most people think that's stupid, but it happens with people. You have these goals. It happens with women too. You know, they will have really good results on one particular thing, and then they just go after it, and then they're off balance, right? Have you ever seen a fitness person, a woman who just is gifted with amazingly strong legs, right? And that's all they do. And their upper body looks like jello and they don't do anything. It's because they're measuring one thing. They're being rewarded through compliments and maybe even their own vision of themselves in a mirror, and that's all they work on. Because maybe they suck at everything else, right? That happened to me. When it comes to weightlifting, I'm in the top whatever percentage of strength, of natural strength people, probably anywhere. When it comes to cardio, I'm in last place. Not always, but you know, for the most part, at over 300 pounds, I'm not winning the marathon. And so, instead of seeing the overall benefit of running the marathon or training for the marathon, by the way, I'm just using that as an example, it was never part of my regimen. If I just using that, I'd say, well, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm gonna go back to what I'm rewarded for. I'm rewarded for being strong. Well, guess what? My body doesn't need that. My body rejects that. My body can't handle being over 300 pounds. I don't produce enough insulin for a body of this size, right? But if I was obsessed with the idea that I had to stay, you know, let's say have 20-inch arms or 22-inch arms, you know, if that was my ultimate objective, then I would be dead far too early, because I would be overeating. I would not be doing what I need to do as far as the cardio goes. I wouldn't be doing any of this. And so again, you have to be careful in what you measure in life. And it goes back to everything. If you think the big house matters, it doesn't. You know what? I had 98 followers when I had my 2,600 square foot, 4-bedroom, pond, tennis court, barn, giant, beautiful home. And I have 98 followers when I live out in the middle of the woods in my tiny home. So it doesn't matter, you know, it really doesn't. Those things aren't what's important. I find more value and joy in traveling the world and seeing things than I do having things. Going and doing things is more important than having things. I think that that lesson is tough for a young mind. You know, even your children may not understand it, that they don't have some of the, you know, gizmos and gadgets that maybe their friends have. But fortunately for me, I had an amazing teacher, my father. And when all of my friends, not all, but a portion of my friends, you know, when they turned 16, were getting brand new cars, I got this old 1979 two-wheel drive 6-cylinder tank Ford F-150 with the big white fiberglass topper on it. Matter of fact, my buddy Jeremy and I both had the same vehicle. His was a stick shift. I felt fortunate that mine wasn't a stick, because those had the, you know, on the whatever. But I remember being upset with my father because my friend Amy, my friend Matt, I mean, there's many of my friends that had brand new cars. And my father made more than enough money to put my spoiled little ass in a car. And so I didn't get it. At first I was upset. But I can tell you, by the time I hit university and I had enough years under my belt of the example that he forced on me, I 100% appreciated him. I would have never worked as hard as I did to get the things that I've gotten in my life without him pushing me to do so. And so I've lived a little bit different example where I don't care what people think necessarily. And so I will do things that maybe are a little bit more extreme to make sure that things get done. But at the end of the day, it's really, you have this giant goal and you have these things that you want to accomplish. You just got to make sure that you're looking at that big long-term picture. You know, for me, yeah, the goal is to lose weight for the surgeon to feel more comfortable. But he'll do the surgery even if the weight's not lost. I know that. But I still need to be doing the things I'm doing. I also know, because I have experience and I've done this before, that if I just keep chugging along, the results are going to happen. And the results are happening. The scale may not be saying it so much, but, and I don't even know what I weigh right now because I stopped weighing myself a few weeks ago. And I stopped weighing myself a few weeks ago and I feel awesome. I feel great. I feel really good. That pressure's gone. I have too much going on in my life to be allowing this negative energy to crush me. But it also doesn't mean that I don't keep moving forward. I have to do this. I have this other goal that's more silent, which is that I'm trying to convert my mind into being obsessed with cycling, ultimately cardio, and moving, and get away from this egotistical desire to lift weights, because that's a lot of what it is. It's not an aesthetic thing. I don't, you know, being a big fat strong guy is not aesthetically beautiful. It doesn't make you this great wonderful thing. For me, it was just the idea of feeling that strength and power, and that's what, for lack of a better way of saying it, that's what got me off, right? And so I'm trying to shift that, and you shift it by by doing things. And so I'm on the bike, right? And I'm sure if you saw me on a trail, it might look slightly comical. Imagine just under 6 foot tall, 300-pound dude cruising down the bike path at 30 miles an hour, you know, or coming up behind you. That's not exactly normal for most people, but I do it because with my back and my knees and some of the other injuries that I have from a life full of fun and adventure. You know, this is what's good for me. This is less stress on my joints. This works for me. And so I made a couple of investments. And of course, those of you that know me very well, I am a complete geek. And so I figured out how to stream this stuff and do the green screen and all of that. But the reality is that my measurables are much, much, much larger than just the scale. And fortunately for me, I'm able to have the experience to not let one data point derail me from doing everything, because that will come. There's no question. I may not hit the 244, even though it's still my goal. But I will have results. I will be better. I will be better ready than I was in January of 2019. I will be better ready in January 2020 to go ahead and have the surgery that I need to have. And so I know that. My experience tells me that. The science supports that. And yeah, I've got to work on a few things here and there, but I'm only able to continue mentally because I'm not just measuring one thing. And that's really the point of this conversation, right? Sorry, I'm reading just some of the comments here, so hopefully that served you guys. Hopefully that's helped you a little bit. Maybe there's somebody out there that's struggling with the continuing to go. You know, it's April, right? It's almost May. We're going on the second half of April. And maybe you had put a goal that this was going to be your year, right? This is going to be the year you changed everything. That you finally got off the couch and you finally started doing something to attack the goals that you have. Maybe that's going back to school. Maybe that's losing weight. You know, maybe that's being a better parent or a better spouse. And you're reaching this, you've made it through the first quarter and it's not quite working out, right? You're failing. Well, it's okay. I can promise you that if you put the effort in and you just kept going, even when you fail, you get back up, you keep going, you are going to start seeing those results. If you concentrate and manifest yourself on the negative energy that you're feeling, you're going to have negative results. And so sometimes you just have to adjust that method, the plan. If you guys followed me back in 2012, 2013, you know that I preached the plan, my plan, which was set a goal, make a plan, adjust the plan, very important, and you'll achieve your goal. So you got to have a goal, and you got to have a strong reason why you're going after it, a big vision, a big, big, big vision, right? Why are you going after that goal? Doesn't matter if it's financial, doesn't matter if it's a relationship, doesn't matter if it's physical, your weight. Why? Why are you doing it? What is the purpose behind it? And if you have a strong enough why, you have a big enough vision, you have a laser focused method, you're gonna get there. There is no question in my mind that you will get there. When you fail, the word fail bothers a lot of people. It doesn't bother me, so I use it probably more freely than I should. But when you fail at things, I can promise you this. You didn't fail. You just didn't want it. You might have thought you wanted it. You might have thought it was something that you needed to go after. You might have said, well, I have to make a goal. I have to make a resolution. I have to do a thing. So, okay, here, let's throw a dart and, okay, there it is. That's my goal. Red personalities do that a lot. They just want to get things done. And so they throw a dart and they say, okay, my goal is to lose 70 pounds this year. And okay, here's my plan. I'm gonna start eating this certain breakfast. I'm gonna exercise 3 days a week. I'm going to whatever the next thing is. And then it doesn't work. And somebody without the experience, a lot of times what you end up doing is you quit, right? And you quit, and I can tell you, you didn't quit because your plan wasn't right, necessarily. It might have needed to get adjusted a little bit. You didn't quit because you didn't have a goal. You just quit because you didn't really want it. It wasn't a real goal. You didn't have a strong enough reason for doing it. So, the example of losing 70 pounds, there might not have been enough pain in you to push you to that. Why do you want to lose 70 pounds? Right? I had a young woman years ago that I coached, and we started our entire coaching session off with really digging deep into the why. So she wanted to lose weight. You know, I pushed her into this conversation of how much weight, what do you want, how much do you want to lose? And we agreed on 50 pounds. And she wanted to lose 50 pounds in 90 days. To be honest with you, she wanted to lose 40 pounds in 90 days because that's what I had done. But I knew that if I would have had a coach pushing me that I respected, that I actually would have, I could have lost more than, I probably could have lost 50 or 60 pounds with the right person behind me. So I know that. But when she said what she wanted, I didn't leave it there for her. We started digging into why. And, you know, she wanted to feel prettier. She wanted to, I think she started off with, I want to feel healthier. Okay. I don't like how I look. Okay. I want to feel wanted. Okay, we're getting closer, right? I want my husband to want me. Okay, now we're getting really, really closer, right? And so I'm not going to tell you the end of the story for her, but we got deep. We found the reason that she was truly wanting to lose this weight. And once we found that reason, that why, that strong, deep why, once we got there, it was no question we were going to hit that goal. Now, I'll be honest with you, I didn't think she would hit 50. I really didn't. I really thought 40 was the goal, but I wanted to push her beyond what she thought was possible. And I don't, honestly, it was amazing to watch. Her why was so strong that she did everything, anything she needed to do. And she just kept going, and it just kept coming off. She was in the gym twice a day because she had time to do it. She was eating properly, right proportions, the right amount of food. I mean, that wasn't me. That wasn't even the products. That was her having this incredibly strong goal. And she had a coach, me, but she had a coach that was keeping her on point. Because it wasn't all wins. I mean, she didn't lose weight every day. Hell, she went a week or so without losing anything. Might even have gained weight, which is normal. And she could have quit right then and there. She just needed me to jump in and say, remember why you're doing this. Why are you doing this? There's a bigger, that scale isn't what matters. There's a bigger part of this thing that you're going after. And we're going to get there. And so, again, that's just another example of if she would have just been measuring one little thing without this big why, she wouldn't have gotten there. So when people fail at things, when you don't achieve goals that you set, you really didn't fail. You just didn't want it. I mean, you hear it all the time, but you don't have a perspective of why people say that to you. But you just didn't want it. You didn't have a strong enough why. You didn't develop a strong enough why. Let me just put it this way. Maybe you wanted it. Maybe it was a nice to have. Maybe it was a nice dream, but you didn't have the tools in place to allow you to dig deep enough as to why you needed to. You know, you always see all these people that are pushed into corners. Some of the most successful men and women in the world have been pushed into these corners where they had no choice but to do something to get out of it. Now, I don't know Tony Robbins' complete story, and I apologize. So those of you that do, you can chime in when I say it wrong. But this guy didn't start off, you know, charging $1 million a year to have personal, to coach people, which is what he does now. $1 million a year. No, he started at the lowest point in the ladder, and, you know, he had this vision of who he was going to become, and he did whatever it took. Some of you do and don't know my story. I've had a vision of where my life is going to go. I went from being in the upper echelon of management. I worked globally. I had these big, giant titles. I've lived in Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, Thailand, short stint in Australia, done business in South Korea. So I've had this thing, this really successful, what people would think is successful career, and then I shifted. I had a major two different major turning points in my life, and I shifted to what I am now. But I wanted it so bad, and this is where the story, and I wish I had my picture to show you. What did I do to get there? Well, one, I started training and developing skills. I took on a job that would help me get better at what I wanted to become. So I started in a sales position because my entire life I was a little bit of a little Caesar, a little czar. You know, I was in management. If I told you to do it, you did it because we had a contract that said you're going to do it, and I held you accountable to it. Well, that's not how the real world works, especially when you're trying to help people. And so you've got to figure out how to play in the gray area a little bit more. And that wasn't a skill I had. So I started a sales position. The most extreme thing I did, and this is going to sound completely insane to some of you people, but it's just a matter of I had this goal and I found a way to solve a problem. So going through this process to getting where I am today, I honestly wasn't making money. I wasn't making enough money. And so I literally rented out my house and lived in my own driveway. Now, I lived with family for a bit of time just while I was going through this, but I ended up living in my own driveway in the back of a truck camper sitting on a trailer, on a utility trailer. Now, that didn't last very long, but that'll just show you that even for myself, I understood that vision of where I wanted to be. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I knew that one of the obstacles for me was money, and how could I accomplish making money, not losing my house, and developing the skills that I needed to. And so, though my story is a little more extreme than I would expect most people to ever take, it is part of the story of the goals, getting to where you need to be. And so if I would have only had the measurement of having the big fancy house, the big data point of this is what success looks like, I gotta live in this wonderful big fancy house, if I would have had that as my only true measurable, who knows where I'd be today. I can tell you this, I'd probably be in my old career, making really good money, and being miserable, and having zero quality of life, having no real future that was exciting to me, and so fortunately for me, I got rid of all of that preconception of what success is. I don't care about the big fancy car, and neither does anybody else. Go back to my example of how many people are actually following. You know, out of the 2,000 friends I have, and there's only around 100 actually following, and I'd split that in half to say only about half of those are even active. And so, who cares, right? Who cares if I have what I have? Even when I have the most, who cares, right? It doesn't matter. That was one of the things that bothered me about the company I was with back in 2012 and 2013, because that was a part of their deal, is that they rewarded you, and one of their goals that they set for you was to hit a certain level to where they would give you an allowance for a certain sports car, it was a BMW. And so when you hit this certain sales level, you would have a BMW payment allowance. And so I met that goal. And the only difference for me, this is anybody that was in those company like that, one thing that I recognized was that there was the way that that bonus worked potentially wasn't sustainable. And so what a lot of people would do is they would lease their vehicle. And the problem was is that if they didn't meet that monthly sales target, they didn't receive that monthly bonus. And now they're stuck with a payment they can't afford. For a lot of those people, not everybody, but a lot of those people, that was their truth. Well, I was a little bit different. I recognized that that could be a problem, and so I paid cash for my vehicle. And I was fortunate to be able to do that. And so I didn't have that same pressure on me. Now, there's a lot being said. There's a reason that people do those kind of things, like in any kind of compensation. If you're in sales, they'll put those kind of pressures on you a lot. If you're a real estate agent or an insurance agent, you have monthly targets that you have to meet, and if you don't meet them, you're probably going to lose your job. They put that pressure on you to keep producing, and so that vehicle bonus and putting somebody in a lease put that pressure on them that they had to continue to produce, or else they wouldn't be able to make their payment. And unfortunately for a lot of people, they didn't understand what they were really getting themselves into, and they didn't have a bigger vision. And so I know there was a lot of vehicles repossessed from that company because they couldn't make their payments. So fortunately for me, that wasn't my truth, but nevertheless, it all follows along with be careful what you measure. Be careful what data you're using to measure your success in life. You have to have a bigger picture, so when something's not working, that you have the ability to adjust and not just give up, right? For me, my personal adjustment as it relates to this ride is that I'm not weighing myself right now, and I feel great, and I'm having results, just not on the scale. And honestly, I could be having them on the scale. I don't know. I'm literally not weighing myself because I know that the scale is only one piece of this whole thing. My blood work, my overall mental health, everything is all a part of this journey that I'm on this year. And as I've admitted, I'm trying to, switch my egotistical desires, which used to be lifting weights, and I'm trying to force it down this other path of cycling, because cycling's easier on my body than running or anything else, or even the jumps that you do in CrossFit. And so I know, because of my degree, that cycling is not the #1 way to lose fat. But for me, there's other benefits. It actually does help some of my medication actually work better. It does make my blood work come back better, even if the scale's not where I need it to be. Now, for those of you following extremely close, I did get put on a different blood sugar medication last week. And this particular medication, I don't remember the name of it, and I don't have it in front of me. But this one, what this does is forces your blood sugar level to be lower. I took it for 2 days, and on Sunday, driving home, which is just over about an hour away, driving home from dropping my daughters off, I started falling asleep. Matter of fact, Saturday I did fall asleep quite a bit, but I was here at home, and I just thought I was tired. I just thought, okay, a long day, the weeks keep catching up to me, or whatever it was, and I kept falling asleep when I normally wouldn't. Well, Sunday on my drive home, I started falling asleep. I think I fell asleep 3 times driving. And of course you wake up in shock and the endorphins jump in and you wake up for a minute, but it was that medicine. And so I stopped taking it. I stopped taking it Sunday night, and I haven't had time to even talk to the doctor yet. I'm still using everything else that I was using. He didn't take me off of anything else. He just added this particular product. I don't have a proper blood sugar monitor at this point, and pricking my finger is not an option for me, so I have a unit that I have to purchase here shortly when I get approval from my insurance company. And so I don't want to start taking that medicine again until I have that unit in my arm, so that we know for a fact that that's what's going on. But I suspect that what happens, it's a long, I forget how they say it, but a long-acting drug, so it actually goes over time, and about 6 hours in is when this seems to occur for me, and it drops, I don't know what level, but it obviously drops my blood sugar down to a point where my body can't handle it. I think that's what's happening. So anyways, long story short, I don't want to keep taking that medicine until I have the blood sugar monitor. So, and look at that, we're at almost an hour. So, as I always do, we're going to crush it here in the last little bit to finish up the ride. I hope you guys enjoyed today's conversation. If you want to chime in, go ahead. Oh, I didn't get there. Woo! Love you guys. Appreciate you guys being here. I will be back on Friday morning. If you're on Facebook, I will start doing more lives. I had an announcement last night that I was asked to be a part of this master class training that I'll be presenting in that here in a few weeks. And I'll get more information to you guys out there. If you're trying to figure out what I do for a living, I guess in general the best way to say it is I help businesses learn how to market their product, service, or opportunity online. So if you're trying to figure out how to market your business online and nothing's working for you, just get a hold of me. That's what I do. I can either coach you or teach you how to do certain things. Anyways, woo! Love you guys. We will see you on Friday.